Morning, everyone. So I was going to talk about something different to what I'm actually going to talk about. The Swella Braverman thing keeps kicking off. I sort of suspected it would. We've had some new information in the Times today. Now, the Times, technically the Sunday Times, first broke the story about the Swella Braverman, not the speeding fine, because that's what they're trying to say. They're trying to do the old cake. Oh, Boris Johnson was fined for cake. No, he wasn't fined for cake. He was fined for an illegal gathering. The cake was neither here nor there. And in actual fact, no one even appeared to eat any cake. They're doing the same thing with Swella Braverman. Oh, you're trying to sack you for having a speeding ticket. No, they're not. Oh, they're trying to suggest that she tried to get out of a punishment. No, they're not. Swella Braverman kept saying that in Parliament all yesterday. Oh, I didn't try and get out of the sanction. No one's suggesting she did try and get out of the sanction. What they're suggesting is that she abused her power to try and get the civil service to give her special arrangements, a one-to-one speed awareness course, which she'd already booked when she was Attorney General, so that none of the public would find out that she had broken the law as Home Secretary, right? Bad enough as Attorney General, quite frankly. Although in actual fact, it's not. I don't know why she thought it would be that big a deal, because people get speeding tickets all the time. MPs get speeding tickets all the time. Robert Jenrick has been banned from driving. He was driving so fast. So, this is also fairly stupid of Braverman to make an issue of it. But the thing is, what's happened, and this happened with Partygate. So we've had some new information this morning. Before I get to it, let's just go through the process. What happened during Partygate? I mean, the reporting of Partygate, not Partygate itself. So first of all, news broke that there were these illegal parties, right? Then Boris Johnson went, oh, let's come up with some story that gets me out of this. So he came up with some story, right? Some explanation. So then what happened? Because the journalists who first broke it had lots of information, they just leaked a little bit. They just published a little bit. So Boris Johnson then says a thing. So then the media go, oh, he said a thing now. Right, now it's our move again. We're going to publish this other bit of information that contradicts what he's just said. So he's a liar. And then Boris Johnson go, oh, no, they've come out with this other thing now. And he'd come up with a new lie. And then the media would publish something else which exposed the lie. And you just keep doing that. So you don't report the whole thing. So what the Times have done is they talk about the fact that Swella Braverman talked to officials and asked them to arrange her some special treatment, right? So then she goes, no, I just asked him for advice. I didn't ask them to do anything. So then the Times go, oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. Then the Mirror publish the fact that they had asked Swella Braverman, because they'd heard about this fine, right? That people have known about this for a long time, right? That they just haven't been reporting on it. They've been waiting. They've been waiting to use it. So the Mirror then revealed that something like a month and a half ago, they'd contacted her office to ask about this speeding penalty, and her office denied it. Oh, no, shit, what are you on about? She hadn't been done for speeding. What are you talking about? So that's interesting. So the Mirror then revealed that. So she's lied about it. And I'm going to keep emphasizing, it's a stupid lie because, all right, yes, Home Secretary. I mean, she was Attorney General at the time. That hardly matters. That's still, broke the law. But most people don't really consider speeding to be, particularly if it's just over the limit, so to speak, they don't really consider it a big deal. Now, whether that's right or wrong is another matter, but they don't. So, and people do get speeding tickets quite frequently. So it was a stupid lie. She shouldn't have denied it. She shouldn't have tried to hide it. She should have just done it. Other politicians do. Andy Burnham's been done recently. Robert Jenrick's been done recently. It's not considered a big deal. The public, they report on it. It's in the newspapers, and then it's gone. The public go, oh, they're done for speeding. How embarrassing. And then it's done. And Robert Jenrick's, remember, he was blasting it. He was doing like double the speed limit or something stupid, which is why he's banned from driving now. And yet that's not running and running. No one's making a huge deal of it. I mean, that's actually really bad. He could have killed someone. But anyway, there we go. It's the new story now is, so they get Swella Braverman and say, oh, no, I asked it for advice. So now the Times this morning report that they've seen emails that the civil servants that she'd asked to arrange this special course had emailed the Cabinet Office with what she's done. So now Braverman's been contradicted with emails seen by the Times in this case. So now she's being contradicted. And all this time, all the times this going on, Rishi Sunak's going, oh, should there be an inquiry or not? Should there be an inquiry? It's like, of course there should be an inquiry, unless you want to sack her out of hand. You know, and then you think, so what is the cat and mouse game going here? If you look at the situation in isolation, you look at it and you go, Suella Braverman is basically toast, because the Times have probably got even more. You know, they reveal a little bit on Saturday afternoon, as it was, but in print on Sunday. Suella Braverman tries to come up with a story that takes account of what's being reported and makes her sound innocent. So then the Times go, oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. Oh, by the way, we've got this proof that you're lying. So then she'll try and come up with some other story now, because she'll have to. She can't stick to her old story because it's lies. And then if she does, and nothing happens, and she's still there, in a couple of days' time, the Times will publish something else, because there'll be someone wants her gone, basically. It might be Rishi Sunak. It's certainly someone who's aligned with Rishi Sunak, if it's not him himself. So, but there's another side to this as well. So you look at it and you think, okay, Rishi Sunak is going to have to deal with this, and he can't wait till Wednesday, because if come PMQs tomorrow, Rishi Sunak is still umming and ahhing about the inquiry, Starmer will have him for breakfast. So he's got to do something. Something has to happen. Either the investigation is ordered, or Braverman's already resigned, or whatever. But then there's another thing, and it's that Suella Braverman might want to resign over the immigration figures this week. That's another suggestion. So immigration figures are due to be published this week. I actually don't know when. Could be today, tomorrow, Thursday. I don't actually know, in all honesty. Wednesday is often a good day for them to be published, government figures, if you want to hide it in amongst all the other stuff going on. Usually just before PMQ, so you're not giving the opposition enough time to ask questions about it. And it's expected that the figures are going to be not pleasing to the gammons. Certainly way higher than they've been. Record numbers, record amounts of immigration since Brexit. How interesting. Just what everyone said would happen, apart from the Brexiteers. And Suella Braverman, it is thought, might, particularly if she's been threatened with being pushed, she might resign, saying that these immigration figures are terrible. And although she's Home Secretary and you would think responsible, she will say, actually, no, I'm not responsible, because I keep having my policies watered down by other cabinet colleagues who are too weak to have my vision. They're too weak. They lack backbone. They lack steel. So I'm not going to be responsible for these figures, because I've tried to implement policies that would have dealt with it and I've been overruled. So I'm just leaving the government. So she may try and turn this to her own advantage. So from Sunak's point of view, it's like, if Braverman's no longer a member of the government, she will cause trouble for him. So it's like, on that point of view, maybe he needs to try and keep her in the cabinet. But if she's going to resign in protest, it's better for Sunak to sack her. So there might be a bit of cat and mouse going on here. There may be a bit of cat and mouse. And it's a case of Sunak not being sure what the right thing to do is. And bear in mind, Sunak is not a sharp political operator, and I don't think he's advised by people who are. But what we've got with this latest news is Braverman has basically, there's emails proving that, at the very least, proving that Home Office officials were sufficiently concerned about what the Home Secretary was asking them to do, that they contacted the Cabinet Office. And in the emails, apparently, the Cabinet Office told them not to do anything. In other words, not to do what Braverman was asking them to do, is how it seems to me. But there we go. Let's catch up with some of the comments. How's trying to hide her speeding from the public working out for her, then talk about the strides and fair. Well, exactly. And the thing, and I keep coming back to it. This is, you can understand how with certain crimes, of course, a minister would want to conceal them. This is something that, in all honesty, most of the public do not consider serious. You could argue we should consider it a little bit more serious, especially if she was doing, I don't know, 35 in a 30 zone or 45 in a 40 zone or something, I don't actually know what it is, then again, most of the public aren't going to, it's like you'll see it reported and then that'll be that. I mean, if Robert Jenrick can whatever he was, I think he was doing 60 and a 30 or something. I think he was properly, speeding, like incredibly dangerous. If Robert Jenrick's speeding offence can just be reported one day and forgotten the next, of course Braverman's would have been. It wouldn't have been an issue for at all. And again, it's just, and it also speaks to her character. Why would she attempt to conceal it? Is it just because there's so much dirty dealing that she just instinctively tries to conceal all of it? Like, because that's what I would want to know in all seriousness. Why has she tried to conceal it? No one would have cared. No one would have cared. Labour would not have even mentioned it in a question. They wouldn't have said anything. Because they know as many Labour MPs as Tory MPs get speeding fines. Ed Balls, stupid beggar, when he was a Tory MP, a senior Tory MP, Labour MP, when he was a senior Labour MP, he got done for speeding twice in quick succession and lost his licence. Silly beggar. So this is not something that Labour are going to throw stones at, because they know they're in a glass house on this one. She was fine. She's created herself a problem by trying to get out of something here. Alex saying power struggle in third party, but who is involved? Somebody trying to demolish Braverman, but somebody supporting her to have Sunak nervous. Who are these factions? Is ERG dead, or is it one of them? So the ERG is split. It's not completely dead. It is probably no longer doing anything of value. We could see how badly split it was when fewer than half of them. See, the ERG is already smaller post-Brexit than it was before Brexit. Before Brexit, I think they had something like 80 members. Now it's like 40 odd. So fewer than half of them voted against the Windsor Framework, even though the official position of the ERG is they were against it. So the ERG had an official position, we are against this. Like a union will say, this is our considered view, but then the members vote against them. Well, that's sort of what happened with the ERG. They had the majority of their own members voted against their position, several of whom are in cabinet. So not only Suella Braverman, James Cleverly, Penny Mordaunt, Chris Heaton-Harris. So, but of course, some of the ERG could be on Sunak's side because Braverman's in his cabinet. Now, if Braverman leaves the cabinet, especially under a cloud, well, how else do you leave cabinet? It may well be that some of those ERG that are on his side purely because Braverman's in there may no longer. So, and we don't know. Sunak will know. Braverman will know the strength of her hand, although she may not be. Because the problem is, this is like idiots fighting. Sunak is not a sharp political operator. Braverman is not a sharp political operator. If Braverman was an astute politician, she would not have tried to conceal the speeding fine. Because consider what's happened. She's tried to conceal the speeding fine stupidly, because it would have done her no harm at all. It wouldn't have hurt her reputation in the slightest. And she's also spent quite a long time attacking civil servants. Well, do you think there's a danger if you keep attacking your own officials that those officials might spill your secrets? Do you think there's a chance of that? But anyway, a Braverman attacking woke civil service whilst asking favours from them, etc. She's basically expecting her officials to cover up, because remember, there'll be other things as well. Don't imagine this is the worst thing they've got on her. This is remember, this is the first thing they've leaked. What if there's more? Because the next thing that gets published might not even be a follow-up to this scandal. It might be another one. There might be something else she's been doing. And again, anything she's been doing in terms of abusing her position, civil servants will know about. But there we go. Tories making Game of Thrones look like amateurs where backstabbing political assassinations. Well, except, yes, they are, but they're also doing it very, very badly. But I just think we're going to find something's going to happen this week. There's no way this just fizzles out. Something's going to happen this week. At the moment, the pressure is on Braverman here. Sunak cannot just let this fizzle out. If Braverman wants to remain in the cabinet, Sunak is going to find it increasingly difficult to support her, especially with this morning's news. I'm going to have to try and find an update at some point, especially with this morning's news. There's no, oh, bless. Look at this. On the Guardian UK politics front page, the main news is that the Lib Dems are having a bad day because Dominic Raab's not going to stand at the next election. No, I think the news is that Suella Braverman is in more trouble than she was yesterday. And but from Sunak's point of view, it really is. Does he? I don't know. Does he? He can't let her jump. He's got. If she's going to go, he's got to push her. Otherwise, he looks weak. But we will see. We will see. Realistically, just how far will the ongoing exposure of overt Tory fascism go? Continue effects? Do we think we'll have to deal with it going forward? Yes, because in opposition, it'll be more of a problem. At the moment, because the Conservatives are in power. Now, if they were going to remain in power, if Labour were not in a winning position, I would be very, very worried about where we're going in this country. I've now got more hope because the Conservatives are not going to win. They're not. They're beaten. But in terms of in opposition, they become more of a problem because you can make populist ideas sound more plausible in opposition. They don't sound plausible in government. Because look what's happened, right? With asylum, for example, they're doing the opposite of what works. What works? Clearing the backlog, processing claims. They're not doing that, right? They've stopped processing claims. That's why the backlog's building up. That's why we've got a problem. That's why we're having to spend a fortune on accommodation, because we haven't been processing the claims. That's why courts are telling us we can't deport people, because they haven't had their application heard. If we heard their application and the application failed, and it's British officials who decide whether it fails or not. Obviously, they can't use their own criteria, but they're the ones who decide. The ones who fail get deported. No court has an issue with that as long as the process has been done properly. So, but what happens is when you're in government, it's like, oh, we've got this really great plan to deal with this thing. And, oh, but Labour aren't supporting it. And you say to them, Labour don't need to support it. You've got a majority. You can create your own laws. Oh yeah, okay. Are you going to create this law? Yeah, we are. Right then, a bit later. Right, have you created that law you said you were going to do? Yeah, we did. It's in place now. All right, did it work? No. They're going on about this Stop the Boats bill. Have people forgotten there was one last year? There was legislation last year that was passed last year that was supposed to stop the boats. Did it? No, it got worse. Oh no, but this one's going to do it. No, it's not. I mean, do people still fall for this? There must be some people still fall for it. How many years we had this thing? The Conservatives go, oh, we've got this great plan to do this thing. Right, do it then. You're in government, do it. Right, we will do. Has it worked? No. It never. Oh, it's got worse. Funny that. And yet, because the Tories are polling higher than 0% in the voting intention polls, there are people still falling for this rubbish. Neil was saying Raab has robbed us of one possible Portillo moment. Yeah, I'm glad you said one possible Portillo moment. There's loads lining up. Do you know what will be the best one? Do you know what I'm hoping happens, right? So Boris Johnson gets a hefty suspension, is kicked out of Parliament, right? I don't know when that's going to happen. Let's say at some point. We don't know what the suspension is going to be, but let's say it's a proper one. And after the Ferrier 30-day suspension, they really can't give anything light to Boris Johnson. It would look dodgy as hell. So Boris Johnson gets suspended. He's kicked out of Parliament, recall petition, all the rest of it. So then there's a by-election in his Uxbridge seat. Now, Boris Johnson, I bet, doesn't stand in it. I bet you he sulks for a bit. So someone else stands in it, Labour win it probably. So then Boris Johnson does a chicken run to Henley, his old seat, safe Tory seat, where he's just bought a mansion for a few million quid. So he stands in that, and he gets himself made the candidate there, because there does need to be a candidate. The current MP is standing down at the next election. So there needs to be a candidate, and the candidate hasn't been selected yet. So Boris Johnson becomes their candidate, right? He's already going to go and live there anyway. So then at the general election, safe Tory seat, right? But I reckon Boris Johnson is so toxic, he could probably lose almost any seat. So then he loses Henley to the Lib Dems in this case, not Labour. So the Lib Dems will get the honour there, but that might compensate for the fact they can't have Raab now. So that is what I'm looking at. That will be, for me, the moment. If you're looking for your Portillo moment, people won't even talk about a Portillo moment from that day on. They will talk about the Johnson moment. The day that the person who won the previous general election by this large margin couldn't even win his own seat, but could not win a safe Tory seat. And Henley should be, on paper, a safe Tory seat. Not as safe as it was, because obviously the Tories are about as popular as a fart in a broken lift. But that, for me, that's the moment I want to see. Interested in where you think this country would go if the Tories did get another election win. We can already see where it's going. They have prioritised legislation, this Parliament. Okay, COVID's derailed them a little bit, but they've been prioritising legislation that have been removing our rights and paring back democracy. The voter suppression, the gerrymandering, and it's not all over as well. Even postal vote, you think, okay, get a postal vote. They've also introduced rules that apply from this October, which mean if you have a postal vote, it only lasts for 3 years. But how many people know that? How many people know that you have to keep applying for a postal vote? Because up until now, you've just needed to do it once, and you're permanently on that until you tell the council otherwise. So there's already been doing and removing rights to protest and things like that, and it'll be bit by bit as well. They'll first of all use it to attack protesters. Well, obviously we've seen that they've attacked the Republic protesters already. That's got them into a lot of trouble. Some of that was absolutely bloody stupid. But they would have used it bit by bit. First of all, on protesters that generally the public would think it's fine, the police having extra powers for those, but then subtly other people. We'd have seen Steve Bray arrested, for example, and then you give them another 5 years on top, and just imagine, because the Conservatives are shit scared of losing power. They prioritize power above everything else. Now, there is a sense in which, yes, I want Labour to do that, but it's not, not above common decency. But the Conservatives do. Apart from anything else, it is possible that there are criminal investigations that should occur. I know a lot of what they've done in government will not be a criminal offence because we, the public, gave them a blank check to do almost what they like. But there may still be actual criminal offences that have been committed. But there it is. But if we'd have given another 5 years, first of all, I mean, so Keir Starmer yesterday was saying he doesn't think the NHS could survive another 5 years of the Tories. He's dead right about that. I mean, people will say things like, oh, we must stop them privatising it. They've actually already privatised it. The NHS still exists. It's still recoverable, but it already is. Forget about the fact that it's being privatised. It is now privatised. Yes, the state technically control it, but it's privatised. And the reason I say that is not only is about a third of the funding going to private companies, and still being classed as NHS funding, but NHS boards now, in terms of the actual NHS money, who decides who spends it? Who decides what it gets spent on? The trust's boards, right? There are representatives of private healthcare companies on the seats of those boards now. That wasn't the case before. That is now. So the NHS trusts are run not by people who are like laymen, who are like, just members of the public, or just health experts. Oh, hello, my picture seems to have disappeared. But actual people who have interests in private healthcare companies, who even own private healthcare companies. And when they're deciding where NHS money should go, where do you think they're going to decide it should go? Oh, I've got a business that can deliver this service. Oh, I think we should pay my business to deliver this service. So it's already privatized. It is already privatized. It's in a situation where That can be stopped quite quickly. You can change it very quickly who has a seat on the boards of these things, who decides where at least the NHS money has been spent. Oh, do I know if they send a reminder on that? Going to have to start making calendar to remember to reapply postal vote at this rate. Right. I don't actually know if you would get a reminder, but I'll tell you what I'm guessing. I'm guessing no, because there's no good reason to do this. Why on earth should you have to reapply for a postal vote every any period of time, 3 years or whatever? There's no reason. And do you know why it'll be 3 years? Because 3 years sounds reasonable, doesn't it? But I'll tell you what 3 years is. 3 years is, so you apply for a postal vote for a general election. And then 3 years is just enough time to forget that you might need to reapply for it. But it's also the next general election is probably going to be after that 3-year period. So it's just enough time for you to forget all about it. And when you get to the next general election, think you've got postal voting and you haven't. That's what I think it is. So I don't think, unless an individual council decides that they want to send out reminders, I don't think the government will require them to. That's what I think. But anyway, Braverman says, say, my wife, NHS, had a meeting last week on improving workflow. Ironically, meetings stopped to work. Well, meetings do that, unfortunately. Meeting had branded slides and was obviously done via corp template. Yeah, I mean, that's it. But that is how it is now. It is privatized. The NHS is actually now privatized. So that has to be reversed. And part of it can be quickly reversed. So if we say that there's like 1/3 of NHS money going to private companies anyway, that's difficult because you've got to build up the NHS infrastructure. And if like 2/3 of it is going to the NHS, but private healthcare companies decide how it's spent, Labour can at least stop that very quickly. They can at least restructure the boards and who makes the decisions on that. But, you know, there's an awful lot of damage to be done. But I was going to talk today about Labour's targets on that. I may do that on Thursday, but I can't promise that the Braverman issue won't have raced away again, because something is going to happen this week. I'm not actually going to talk about Braverman today on my own channel unless something happens, but something is going to happen this week. Either an investigation is going to be launched, or Sunak will just sack her or force her to resign, or she's going to resign in protest over the immigration figures. I do not see any outcome where this just fizzles out, because whoever has decided that Braverman is a loose cannon, because again, I'll just make my final point that ask yourself, if you haven't already, why has this information been leaked at the weekend? The Braverman committed a speeding offence, I think it was last June or July. She was Attorney General at the time. She applied for a speed awareness course. Then she tried to get that changed when she became Home Secretary in September. So the breach of the ministerial code, the alleged breach of the ministerial code, occurred last September. That's a long time ago. That's 9 months ago. That is 9 months ago. So why is, or thereabouts, anyway, it depends when in September, I suppose. Why is it only coming out now? And then you think to yourself, so what's happened recently? Well, last week, Suella Braverman went completely off the rails, and she is going to do the Conservative Party a lot of harm when they're going into an election year, because she's gone completely freelance. So someone, whether it's Sunak or an ally of Sunak, someone wants to clip her wings. That is why this has been released when it is. That is why. It's too much of a coincidence for me for it not to be that. So someone has decided Braverman needs dealing with. And either she winds her neck in or she needs removing, because she cannot be a cabinet minister going off the rails like this. That's what I think. So as a result, something has to happen this week. Something has to happen. And also, if something hasn't happened by tomorrow lunchtime, then I think I know what PMQs is going to be about, because this, and I'll make this point on my own channel at some point this week as well. Labour have already beaten the Conservatives. The Conservatives have no chance. The battle for next year's election is the head-to-head between Starmer and Sunak. Starmer is ahead of Sunak on most polls, but it's not got like a storming lead over Sunak. It's too tight. Starmer needs to personally crush Sunak. And Sunak, if he hasn't done something by PMQs this Wednesday, it gives Starmer an opening. So something has to happen. But there we go anyway. Come to the end on that. I'll do a last couple of comments just to see best ways to start prosecuting Tories for high treason on day one. Again, it's if they've committed any criminal offence. A lot of what they've done is deliberately damaging to the country. But the thing about governments is they tend not to legislate to make their own activities illegal. So a lot of what politicians do, although it sounds like it should be a crime, it's politicians, it's MPs who would make it a crime, and MPs are not in the business of making themselves criminals. But anyway, I wanted to stay so we can see the most damage. Well, leaving may do a lot of damage because leaving means she doesn't have to even pretend to accept ministerial responsibility. You know, so she's not accountable at all except to her own constituents. And she's now wangled herself a safe seat. The only thing Sunak could do then is remove the whip from her and potentially then stop her being able to stand as a Tory MP. You know, like Boris Johnson did ahead of 2019, Rishi Sunak in theory could do the same thing, purge the lunatics. The only thing is that Johnson was in a stronger position to do so than Sunak is, so I'm not sure he would. But there we go anyway. Thank you for coming on. Have a very good day. Don't forget to click the like button, subscribe to the channel. You can look in the description below for some links that I will add in later on, especially if you're not watching this live. And until next time, I'll see you later.